Hey folks, welcome back to another review with yours truly, Sam Healey. Today we're taking a look at something that's a wee bit out of my wheelhouse, but I was intrigued by it nonetheless, being a teacher for a good number of years. Operation Kindergarten is a game where each player takes, up to 4 players, takes the role of a kindergarten teacher trying to be named successor as the next head teacher, because the head teacher is retiring. So the head teacher is watching closely and evaluating your every move, and you're trying to get your kids to survive recess, get back to your rooms so that your parents can pick them up in your classroom. And so I thought the theme was very interesting. I was very drawn to this. It popped off the shelf on me, so I wanted to give it a whirl. Let's get down to the table and I'll show you how it works. So in Operation Kindergarten, the basic gist of the game is for each teacher to get as many of their own students back to their classrooms by the end of the day so that their parents can pick them up as humanly possible. Now, there is a head teacher that is running around making evaluations. She's about to retire, and she's doing an evaluation on all the other teachers to see who is going to take her place. So the head teacher is going to be evaluating the other teacher's performance on the job so that she can determine who is the best teacher to take her position. Now, each player starts with 100 evaluation points, so they have an A+ to begin the game with, and as the game progresses, they're going to be losing evaluation points, getting a lower and lower grade, but whoever has the most points, evaluation points at the end of the game, is declared the best replacement for the head teacher, and they are the winner. The game is played through the course of 6 rounds, and those rounds are divided up into different phases. The first of which, on the first 3 rounds, is a recess phase. The recess phase does not happen in rounds 4, 5, and 6 because basically what you're doing in the recess is you're seeding the board with the children that are being released from their classrooms. And so that's when the quote-unquote fun begins for the teachers, of making sure that they don't get hurt, making sure that they are happy and not crying, and so forth and so on. So in the recess phase, the first recess phase, we take all of the smallest children, which are these guys right here, the tots, and we are going to randomly distribute them throughout the course of the board. Now, the board has these spaces that have a line underneath a number, and those are the starting positions for the children as they come out. So you would basically just randomly pick one of them, we'll say the green 14 here, and then we'll go in a clockwise fashion to all of the different starting spaces and put those children out there. So the first person does that. The starting player is the person where the rule says that the last person who went to a kindergarten. So, for an adult, it's either, your interpretation depends upon, maybe it's the youngest person at the table, or it is the person who just went up to pick their kid up at kindergarten last time, whatever you'd like to do. But anyway, the head teacher starts there, and so the green player here is going to go ahead and take all of the tykes out of the thing and just place them randomly on the board, going in a clockwise fashion. So now that the children, the tots, have been dispersed randomly, the roll call happens, which is the next phase, where the lead or the starting player takes all of the dice that are there and rolls them. All right, so we roll them and then we group them together by number. And so now the teachers are going to choose one by one which one of these dice gets placed in these different areas. Now, this is important to note because this is kind of where the crux of the game happens, as far as it's kind of a programming thing to what's going to happen out here on the board. Here, this is the number of pips on the die will determine how many spaces the child moves. The number of pips here, though, will determine which direction the child moves in. So if you look at the board here, you'll see that some of the hexes have dots on the inside of them, and that denotes the direction that they will head in. So if it's a 6 down here, then they will move from this hex to 18. So because of the 6 pips that are on the board right here. So that's how that is determined. The other spaces here, these spaces are denotes if, for example, if green puts a 4 there, that means that their teacher can move 4 spaces during the course of their turn, and so forth, or 3, 2, or 1 space. So that's what these spaces are. They're color-coded as well. This denotes what kinds of actions are going to be available to the teachers on their turn. And the number that is here is determinant by all actions are available for your first action, but then you can do a routine as well, and that routine is denoted by the number that gets placed here. So if a 4 gets placed there, that means that you can do any one of these as an action. Then you can also do a routine, which is only clean up, pacify, regroup, or rerun if a 4 is placed there. So this is also a programming type thing where you're planning ahead to what you can or cannot do. And whoever puts the die there is basically setting for everybody else what they will be able to do for that second routine. And then finally, the die that's placed here is determining by the number of pips how many spaces around the table clockwise the head teacher will go. And that's important because if you receive boo-boos or boo-hoos during the course of your turn, you may receive extra minus evaluation points if the lead teacher is actually watching your classroom when those happen. So that's determinant as well. It also determines who is going to be the start player of each round. So that may or may not want to be moved. So now the teachers will, one by one, take turns placing these out. So now that this is done, we're able to go into the children's phase now, where children are going to move according to the dice that were put down here. Now the children are going to move, and the first player would move all of his children first, and then going in clockwise fashion, everybody else will. So green will take their little tots here and move 1 space in the direction of 1. And so both of these are going to go this way, and then this one over here will go also in the direction of 1, which is this way over here. Next is the teachers phase, where the teachers can move around, clean up different hazards that are on in their different sectors, or move their kids around and do different things. You get 1 action and 1 routine, and you also can use your movement in throughout those. So you have your amount of movement here, and then you can perform 1 action and 1 routine, or you can actually choose not to do anything if you want to do that. So the actions are order, patch up, clean up, pacify, regroup, and run. Now, run is always available only as a routine, so it can only be the second thing that you do in your action in your turn. It can never be an action that you get for free. So you'll always be able to, because the least number is a 1, so you'll always be able to use it as a routine, but never as an action. Furthermore, there is one that's not listed here called carry, and that's because it's always an action that's available to you. Carrying is before you perform your movement action, you can pick up a child that's adjacent to the space that you're in and carry him to another spot using your movement value. Then there is also the order, which is where you can send 1 child that is in either your zone or your location or an adjacent location, and move him as many hexes as his movement value is. Of course, he can't cause collisions, and he can't go into a spot that is already and if he goes into a spot that a child is already existent in, then he must stop there. So those are things you have to keep in mind. There's also a patch up where you can remove 1 boo-boo token from either a hex adjacent to the one you are located in. Then you can also do a cleanup, which is where you can take different kinds of chaos tokens off the board. You can clean up the different things that are in the courtyard that are causing trouble or hurting the children somehow. You can also regroup, where you take 3 children of any color from an adjacent hex, rearrange them, and then move them to another adjacent hex that's next to you. So those are the different things that you can do. Running is something that you can use to move your teacher token up to a number of hexes that is equal to your movement value here. It's an additional movement that you can do to your regular movement. After the teacher phase comes the chaos phase, where we take the chaos bag, and the first thing we do is we randomly draw 3 tiles from the bag, and we put them number side up over here from top to bottom, and like this. And then we'll draw chaos tokens that will go in these spaces. So green 6 will get a live animal, so that goes over there. And then red 12 here will get a pile of poop. Hopefully that's animal poop, but red 12 gets that. And then blue 14 gets a pair of scissors, some pointy objects. So these are now chaos factors, dangerous things that the kids will hopefully not run into, but they might during their movement. And so the teachers are trying to clean these things up before their kids get into them. So as you can see here, as we move into the chaos phase of turn 3, a lot of things have been added to the board, a lot of dangers, and definitely a lot of children. So now we're in the chaos phase. We have placed out all of the new guys based on where we have gone, and now we're going to have to take points that are equal to the number of dangers that our kids are encountering right now. So right now, 1 boohoo token has been awarded to green over here, because this live animal is pestering this tot, and the tot is crying. So that wouldn't be necessarily that bad, but because the head teacher is there, it counts double. So this is actually 2 evaluation points here instead of just 1. And that's the only one that's actually affecting any children right now. The teachers were able to clean up other hazards on the playground during their movement phase, and these luckily landed on places where they weren't affecting any kids. So that's that. During the evaluation phase, green will lose 2 more evaluation points, and everything else stays the same. This comes off the board. If any boo-boo tokens were on the board, they would stay on the board until they were patched up using one of the patch-up activity or action or routine on the teacher's phase. The game will basically continue in this respect, going through the different rounds of roll call, children movement, teacher movement, actions and routines and that type of stuff, chaos, until the end of the 6th round. At that point, the final evaluation is taken, and whoever has the highest number of evaluation points is the winner. And that's how you play Operation Kindergarten. So that is how you play Operation Kindergarten. I still really enjoyed the theme. I like the fact how they worked. It seems like they put a whole lot of thought into trying to simulate in a board game format what it probably feels like to be a kindergarten teacher. Now, I've never been a kindergarten teacher. I have taught kindergarten, but just for 1 hour a day. So I've never had to spend an entire day with kindergarten, but I imagine that it probably feels at least a little bit like this, if not much, 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 much more so, because the level of chaos and randomness that is going on in this game is, wow, daunting to say the least. Now, there is a lot of programming in it. As a matter of fact, that's one of the core mechanisms, is programming how the kids are going to move by placing the dice during the roll call phase onto the teacher's lounge board. So you are, in essence, programming where your kids are going to move and how they're going to interact on the board. But the problem is that there are other people who are doing the exact same thing as you. So your program can be really messed up by one person just going, I'm going to put that die there because you didn't want him to go in that direction, or you didn't want him to move that far in that direction. Ha ha ha. So there's a lot of that going on in the roll call phase. So there is that. Now, one of the main things that I had kind of wrong with the game that I didn't really like is that really the first 3 phases or first 3 rounds of the game are just populating the board with kids. Yes, you're moving your teachers around, trying to kind of preemptively subvert some of the chaos tiles that might be out there and setting yourself up, hopefully, to be able to move your kids around in an efficient manner when rounds 4, 5, and 6 come up. But really, for half of the game, you're just populating the board. And that's a real letdown. I'd rather just start with the board populated. Sure, make it randomly populated. Do whatever you want, but let's start the game and make this half as long than it needed to be, because we spent 3 rounds setting up the board. That's what it felt like, and that's just not cool, at least in my estimation. Second thing that I really had wrong with it was that there is so much randomness in it. Now, sometimes random isn't that big of a deal, and I love dice rolling, don't get me wrong, but this one, it just felt like the randomness was misplaced. And now I know they're trying to simulate the actions of kindergartners, which at many times, I have one that lives in my house, can seem very random and very just out there. So I get it. I understand why it's there. It's just not fun in this, to me, in this setting. So I really did want to like the game because I really thought the theme was ingenious. I thought it was a very clever theme, and I thought some of the mechanics were very clever as well. I actually did enjoy the programming aspect, but I didn't enjoy how easily somebody could mess over your program and your strategy. But at the same time, that's neither here nor there. That's kind of a wash for me because I did enjoy it. So I kind of took everything that comes along with it, with that whole programming mechanism. The head teacher, I thought, was a clever mechanic as well. You know, she's kind of, or he is kind of watching the other 3 teachers, evaluating them, seeing which one of them is going to be their successor, and how that adds evaluation points, or the loss of evaluation points at certain points throughout the game if they're watching your classroom when something goes bad. That's very realistic, and it definitely feels that way. When you're being evaluated by a head teacher or your administrator, you're on pins and needles. Even if you're a seasoned veteran and you know what's going on, it still is a little bit jarring to have somebody just sitting there watching you. So I thought that was a cool little implementation of reality into the game. I thought they did that well. Overall, I don't think it's necessarily a bad game, and I think there's probably a lot of people out there that like this game. Z was telling me that Eric Summerer really enjoys the game, and he was touting it a lot when it came out at Essenspiel last year. So I know there are people out there that will like it, just not this guy. I just did not have fun. It was a drag. We wore the rule book out, going back and having to answer questions that just weren't really answered well within the rule book. So the rule book's bad. We did not have a very good time playing this game at all. We understand it. We understand what it was trying to do. It just wasn't fun. And I'm almost sorry because I really, really wanted to like the game. But at the same time, if it quacks like a duck, walks like a duck, and hey, looks like a duck, then it's a duck. So, unless, you know, Chuck Norris says it's a chicken. But anyway, that is Operation Kindergarten. Go check it out. Try before you buy. We'll see you guys on the flip side.